The first time Claire asked Ethan to visit a cemetery, he thought it was a simple act of remembrance. By the third year of their marriage, he realized it had become a ritual he could never escape. Every October 12th, she woke before sunrise, dressed in black, and carried a bouquet of white lilies with trembling hands. She barely spoke during breakfast. Her eyes always seemed fixed on a place far away, as though she had already left them behind. Ethan had never complained. Love, he believed, meant accepting the parts of someone that still hurt. But every year, standing beside the same weathered gravestone, he felt less like Claire's husband and more like an outsider watching another man's love story. The cemetery rested on a quiet hill overlooking the town. Morning fog drifted lazily between rows of marble headstones, giving the place an eerie calm. Claire walked confidently toward one grave. Ethan followed several steps behind. She gently brushed leaves away from the stone before kneeling. Her fingers traced the engraved letters with heartbreaking tenderness. Noah Brooks, beloved son, beloved friend, forever 28. Claire smiled through tears. I still miss you every day. The words pierced Ethan's heart. Not once in 3 years had she looked at him with that expression. She placed the lilies against the headstone. I'm trying to be happy, she whispered. I really am. Then she laughed softly. You'd probably tease me for crying again. Ethan quietly stepped back. He suddenly felt as though he was interrupting something deeply personal. A cold breeze swept across the cemetery. Claire turned toward Ethan. You don't mind coming here, do you? He forced a smile. Of course not. But it wasn't true. He minded more every year. Not because Noah had existed. Everyone has a past. What hurt was that Claire never truly left hers behind. On the drive home, silence filled the car. The radio remained off. Claire stared out the passenger window while Ethan gripped the steering wheel. Finally, he asked, Can I ask you something? She nodded. If Noah had lived, she immediately looked away. Would you have married me? The silence that followed felt endless. Claire didn't answer. She didn't even try. That silence became the loudest answer Ethan had ever heard. They reached home just before noon. Claire quietly carried the empty flower basket inside. Ethan remained in the driveway. His chest felt tight. For 3 years, he had convinced himself he could compete with a memory. Today, he realized memories never grow older. They never disappoint. They never argue. They remain perfect forever. How could any husband compete with perfection? Inside the house, Claire disappeared upstairs. Ethan wandered into the living room. Their wedding photo stood on the fireplace. He picked it up. Claire was smiling. But now he wondered, had she been smiling because she loved him? Or because she was trying to move on from someone else? An hour later, Ethan entered their bedroom. Claire was asleep, exhausted from crying. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, he would never look. Today, he couldn't stop himself. The message appeared on the lock screen. Grace, did visiting Noah help this year? Claire had replied only minutes earlier. No, it only made me miss him more. Ethan froze. His hands began shaking. Not once had Claire ever texted someone saying she missed him that much. Not once. He quietly placed the phone back, walked into the closet, pulled an old suitcase from the top shelf, opened it. 1 shirt, 2 shirts, then another. Each piece of clothing felt heavier than the last. 3 years, 3 birthdays, 3 anniversaries, 3 visits to another man's grave. Maybe he had never really been her husband. Maybe he had only been the man who arrived after the love story ended. As evening settled outside, rain began tapping softly against the windows. Ethan zipped the suitcase shut. He looked around the bedroom one final time. Their framed vacation photos. The blanket Claire insisted they buy together. The tiny ceramic mug she'd given him on their first Christmas. Everything suddenly felt like it belonged to strangers. He picked up his car keys. Then, knock. 3 slow knocks echoed through the silent house. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan frowned. No one was expecting visitors. Claire was still asleep upstairs. He walked to the front door, opened it. A tall man stood on the porch. Rainwater dripped from his dark coat. His face looked pale, tired, haunted. In one hand, he held a faded bouquet of white lilies. The same flowers Claire had placed on Noah's grave that morning. The stranger looked directly into Ethan's eyes. Then, in a calm voice, he said, "Is Claire home?" Ethan nodded cautiously. "Who are you?" The man gave a faint, sorrowful smile. "My name is—" He paused. "Noah Brooks." The suitcase slipped from Ethan's hand. Rain poured harder as Ethan stared at the stranger standing on his porch. For several seconds, neither of them moved. The man's dark hair clung to his forehead, and his gray eyes carried the exhaustion of someone who had spent years running from something or someone. In one hand, he still held the bouquet of white lilies, now soaked by the rain. Ethan swallowed hard. "That's impossible." The stranger gave a faint smile. "I know how it sounds. My name is Noah Brooks. The same Noah whose grave my wife visited this morning?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. The man nodded slowly. "Yes." Ethan's heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear the rain. "No." He shook his head. "I saw your grave. I've stood in front of your headstone every year. I watched my wife cry over it." The stranger lowered his eyes. "I know." Before Ethan could say another word, Claire's voice echoed from upstairs. "Ethan!" She had woken up. Footsteps hurried across the hallway. She reached the staircase. Still half asleep. "Who is it to do?" She froze. The color drained from her face. The bouquet slipped from Noah's hand as their eyes met. For nearly 10 seconds, no one breathed. Claire whispered one name. "Noah." Tears instantly filled her eyes. "No." She stepped backward. "No, you're dead." Noah's own eyes glistened. "I was supposed to be." Claire's knees gave way. Ethan rushed toward her before she hit the floor. She clung to his arm, staring at Noah as though she had seen a ghost. Because in her mind, she had. Inside the living room, silence hung heavily in the air. No one touched the tea Ethan had made. Claire sat curled up on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Noah remained near the fireplace, as if he didn't believe he deserved to sit. Ethan stood between them. His eyes never left Noah. "Start talking." Noah nodded. "You deserve the truth. 5 years ago," Noah began, "I wasn't killed in a car accident." Claire's breathing became uneven. "I survived." Ethan frowned. "Then whose funeral did she attend?" Noah looked away. "A body that couldn't be identified. The police believed it was mine. I let them." Claire covered her mouth. "No." Noah continued. "I had no choice." He explained everything. Before the accident, Noah had uncovered financial crimes involving a powerful investment company. Millions of dollars had disappeared. Several executives were arrested, but the people truly responsible remained free. When Noah agreed to testify, someone tried to kill him. His car was forced off a mountain road. He survived. Barely. The authorities gave him 2 choices: disappear forever or die for real. I entered witness protection. They changed everything. My identity, my location, my life. I wasn't allowed to contact anyone. Not even Claire. Claire stared blankly at the floor. "So, you let me believe you were dead?" Noah's voice cracked. "I cried every night. I wrote letters I was never allowed to send. I begged them to let me call you. They refused. I thought you'd eventually move on." Claire laughed bitterly through tears. "Move on? I buried you. I talked to your grave. I married another man because everyone kept telling me you would have wanted me to be happy." Her voice broke. "But I never stopped loving you." The words echoed through the room like thunder. Ethan felt something inside him shatter. Not because he hadn't suspected it, because he had finally heard it. Out loud. Claire suddenly realized what she had said. She slowly turned toward Ethan. His face was expressionless, which frightened her even more. "Ethan, He quietly raised a hand. "You don't have to explain." His voice was calm. Too calm. "I finally understand." He walked toward the hallway. Claire stood. "Ethan." He didn't stop. She followed him upstairs. He entered their bedroom, opened the closet, pulled out the suitcase. Claire's eyes widened. "No, you can't leave." He folded another shirt. "I should have left years ago." She grabbed his wrist. "Ethan, please. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't mine either." He looked directly into her eyes. "Then whose marriage have I been living in?" Claire had no answer. Again. Silence. Downstairs, Noah stood alone. He looked around the house. Wedding photos covered the walls. Family vacations. Christmas mornings. Birthdays. He smiled sadly. She had built a life, even if part of her heart had stayed behind. He whispered to himself, I came too late. A sudden sound shattered the silence. Someone was trying to open the front door. Not knocking, forcing it. Noah's expression changed instantly. His eyes narrowed. He rushed toward the window. Outside, a black SUV had stopped across the street. Two men in dark jackets stepped out. One of them looked directly toward the house. Noah's face turned pale. Oh no! Ethan came downstairs. What happened? Noah didn't answer immediately. Instead, he whispered, They found me. The door handle shook violently. Once. Twice. Then, bang. A fist slammed against the front door. Another. And another. A deep voice shouted from outside. Noah, we know you're in there. Claire gasped. Ethan instinctively stepped in front of her. Noah closed his eyes. I never should have come here. The pounding grew louder. The lights suddenly flickered. Then, everything went dark. The house fell into complete darkness. Only the flashes of lightning outside illuminated the living room for a split second at a time. Bang! The front door shook again. Claire screamed and instinctively grabbed Ethan's arm. Outside, the voices grew louder. Open the door, Noah. You can't hide forever. Another violent bang rattled the windows. Ethan's protective instincts took over. He quickly pulled Claire behind him. Stay upstairs. I'm not leaving you. Claire cried. You are. His voice was firm. For once, listen to me. She hesitated before slowly backing toward the staircase, tears streaming down her face. Noah stood near the kitchen window, carefully lifting the curtain. His face had completely changed. The quiet, broken man who had arrived holding flowers was gone. In his place stood someone alert, calculating, and terrified. There are 3 of them, he whispered. Ethan frowned. I thought you said 2. There was another one hiding behind the SUV. They always work in teams. You know them? Noah nodded. I've seen them before. They're not police. They're the people who tried to kill me 5 years ago. Another flash of lightning revealed the silhouettes outside. One man was carrying a metal crowbar. Another held a flashlight, scanning every window. The third remained near the SUV, speaking into a phone. Ethan's stomach tightened. This isn't about unfinished business, he said quietly. They came here to finish the job. Noah lowered his head. And now I've brought them to your home. Claire hurried back downstairs despite Ethan's warning. I called the police. Noah looked at her with concern. How long? They said 10 to 15 minutes. He shook his head. They'll be inside long before that. As if to prove his point. Crack! The wooden frame around the front door splintered. The crowbar had begun tearing it apart. Ethan looked around the room. He wasn't a fighter. He wasn't a soldier. He was an architect who spent his days designing homes, not defending them. But this was his home. His wife was inside. Fear could wait. Action couldn't. He grabbed the heavy iron fireplace poker and stood near the entrance. Noah picked up a solid oak chair. Claire stared at both men. You can't fight them. We're not planning to, Ethan answered. We're planning to survive. Another deafening crash echoed through the hallway. The deadbolt bent inward. A hand reached through the broken glass panel beside the door, trying to unlock it from the inside. Claire gasped. Ethan swung the fireplace poker with all his strength. The metal slammed against the intruder's arm. A scream erupted from outside. The hand disappeared. For a brief second, silence. Then came laughter. Cold, mocking laughter. One of the men shouted, You've gotten stronger, Noah, but not strong enough. Noah froze. They know I'm here. They're not leaving. Suddenly, a loud engine roared outside. Headlights flooded the front yard. Another vehicle had arrived. Ethan's heart sank. More of them. Noah looked through the curtains again. His expression changed. No, it's the police. Blue and red lights reflected across the rain-soaked street. The attackers immediately ran toward the SUV. Within seconds, tires screeched. The vehicle disappeared into the storm. Several officers rushed inside after confirming everyone was safe. Detective Mason Reed entered last. He was tall, calm, and observant. His sharp eyes moved from Ethan to Claire, finally stopping on Noah. His expression hardened. "So, you finally decided to come home." Noah looked surprised. "You know me?" The detective nodded. "I've been waiting 5 years to meet you." Everyone gathered in the living room once again. This time, surrounded by police officers. Detective Reed opened a worn leather folder. Inside were faded photographs, newspaper clippings, and investigation reports. He placed an old picture on the coffee table. It showed Noah standing beside another young man in front of an office building. Ethan studied the photo carefully. "Who's that?" The detective didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked directly at Noah. "You tell them." Noah stared at the photograph. His face lost all color. His name was Daniel Mercer. Claire had never heard that name before. Neither had Ethan. Detective Reed folded his arms. "Daniel wasn't just your co-worker. He was the only witness who knew who ordered your murder." Claire's heartbeat quickened. "What happened to him?" The detective's voice grew heavy. "He disappeared 2 weeks after Noah's death." Noah whispered. "I thought he escaped." The detective slowly shook his head. "We found his body last month." The room fell silent. Detective Reed slid another document across the table. "This arrived at my office yesterday." It was a handwritten note. Only one sentence. "The next ghost to disappear is Noah Brooks." Claire covered her mouth. Ethan clenched his fists. Noah closed his eyes. Detective Reed looked at all three of them. "This isn't over. The people hunting Noah are powerful. They have money. They have connections. And judging by tonight, they already know exactly where to find him." Before anyone could respond, the detective's phone vibrated. He answered immediately. His expression darkened. "What?" He slowly lowered the phone, then looked at Noah. "They just found another body." Everyone waited. The detective spoke quietly. "It's the man who helped fake your death 5 years ago. He was murdered less than an hour ago." Noah whispered. "They're erasing everyone." The detective nodded. "And now, you're next." The rain finally stopped just before dawn. The house was quiet, but no one had slept. A police patrol remained parked outside, while Detective Mason Reed sat at the dining table, reviewing the evidence. Claire wrapped both hands around a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Ethan stood by the kitchen window, watching the first rays of sunlight creep over the empty street. Noah broke the silence. "I can't stay here." Claire looked up immediately. "No, you just came back." "I've already put you both in danger," Noah replied. "If I leave now, maybe they'll stop coming after you." Ethan finally turned around. "You really believe people who kill witnesses suddenly become merciful?" Noah had no answer. Detective Reed closed the file. "They're not after your location anymore. They're after what you know." Claire frowned. "What does that mean?" The detective reached into his briefcase and placed a small velvet pouch on the table. This was recovered from Daniel Mercer's apartment. He carefully emptied the pouch. A silver key slid onto the wooden table. It looked ordinary, except for one tiny engraving. B17. Noah's eyes widened. "I haven't seen that key in 5 years. What does it open?" Ethan asked. Noah hesitated. "I don't know, but Daniel once told me, if anything happened to us, never lose the B17 key." Detective Reed leaned forward. "We searched every bank in the city. No safety deposit box matches this number. So where does it belong?" Claire asked. The detective sighed. "That's exactly what we need to find out." As the officers prepared to leave, Detective Reed stopped Ethan at the front door. "I need to ask you something privately." Claire and Noah remained inside. Outside, the morning air felt strangely calm after the night's chaos. "You were packing when Noah arrived, weren't you?" the detective asked. Ethan nodded. "How did you know?" "I noticed details." Ethan looked away. "I was leaving." "Because of Claire?" "Because I realized I was living with someone whose heart belonged somewhere else." The detective remained silent for a moment. Then he said something unexpected. "Don't make permanent decisions based on yesterday." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" "I've investigated families for 23 years. I've seen people lie. I've seen people betray. But last night," he looked toward the house. "When Claire thought Noah was dead, she cried. When she thought you might die, protecting her, she screamed. There's a difference." Inside the house, Claire slowly approached Noah. I have to ask you something. He nodded. When you disappeared, did you ever stop loving me? Noah smiled sadly. Never. Claire closed her eyes. I wanted that answer for 5 years. And now? Noah asked gently. She looked toward the kitchen, where Ethan stood washing the untouched coffee mugs. I don't know. That afternoon, Ethan went into the garage looking for an old toolbox. Instead, he found a dusty cardboard box marked Claire College. Curious, he carried it into the living room. Inside were notebooks, old photographs, movie tickets, birthday cards, and beneath everything else, a sealed white envelope. Across the front, in familiar handwriting, were 6 words. For Claire, if I never return. Ethan's heart skipped. He immediately called Noah. Did you write this? Noah stared at the envelope. His face turned pale. I thought it was destroyed. Claire walked over. What is it? Noah whispered. It's the last letter I ever wrote you. She looked at the envelope. The seal had never been broken. Her hands trembled. I never received this. Noah carefully opened it. His voice shook as he began reading. Claire, if you're reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. If I disappear, don't wait for me. Don't waste your life visiting a grave. Fall in love again. Laugh again. Marry someone who makes you feel safe. Claire covered her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. Noah continued, and if that man truly loves you, choose him without guilt. His voice cracked, because loving me shouldn't become your prison. The room fell completely silent. Claire slowly turned toward Ethan. For the first time in years, she didn't see the man who came after Noah. She saw the man who had quietly stood beside her through every broken anniversary, every sleepless night, every visit to a grave, without asking for anything in return. I'm sorry, she whispered. Ethan looked at her. I spent 3 years comparing you to a memory. I never realized. I was hurting the person who was actually here. Tears rolled down Ethan's face. He had imagined this conversation 100 times. Yet now that it was happening, it hurt even more. Suddenly, Noah reached for the envelope again. Something felt strange. The paper, he held it against the light. There are 2 pages. Everyone frowned. Carefully, Noah separated the thin sheets. Hidden between them was another note. Much shorter, only 1 sentence. Written in different handwriting. Locker B-17. Riverside Central Station. Trust no one. Detective Reed, who had just returned after receiving a phone call, read the message. His expression changed instantly. That's not Noah's handwriting. No, Noah whispered. It's Daniel's. Before anyone could speak, a loud boom echoed outside. The front window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the living room. Claire screamed. Ethan threw himself over her. A black SUV sped past the house without stopping. Smoke poured from the front yard. Detective Reed rushed outside, then shouted back into the house. Nobody move. They've left us a message. Ethan looked through the broken window. Burning in the middle of the lawn was another bouquet of white lilies. Pinned to it was a black card. In bold red letters, it read, Stop digging, or the next grave will be yours. The smell of smoke still lingered in the air as firefighters finished extinguishing the burning lilies on the front lawn. Detective Mason Reed stared at the black card recovered from the ashes. Stop digging, or the next grave will be yours. He slipped it into an evidence bag. This wasn't just a threat, he said quietly. It was a warning that we're getting close. Inside the house, Ethan swept shattered glass from the living room floor while Claire silently packed an overnight bag. What are you doing? Ethan asked. We can't stay here. She looked around their damaged home. They know where we live. They've already attacked once. Ethan nodded. For the first time in days, they agreed on something. An hour later, Detective Reed gathered everyone in an unmarked police SUV. We're going to Riverside Central Station. Claire held the silver key tightly in her hand. If Daniel hid something there, it must have been important enough to die for. Noah looked out the window. I just hope we're not too late. The drive was silent. Rain clouds still covered the sky, making the city feel unusually gray. As they approached the old train station, Ethan noticed dozens of travelers rushing through the entrance. Perfect. A crowded place. perfect for someone to disappear or someone to be watching. Detective Reed parked 2 blocks away. No names, he instructed. No unnecessary conversations. If anything feels wrong, walk away immediately. Ethan noticed the detective resting his hand near the holster beneath his jacket. Whatever they were about to find, Reed expected trouble. Inside Riverside Central Station, the noise was overwhelming. Announcements echoed from loudspeakers. Children laughed. Suitcases rolled across polished floors. Business travelers hurried toward their platforms. To everyone else, it was an ordinary morning. To Ethan, every stranger suddenly looked suspicious. Claire found the locker section first. Hundreds of identical metal doors stretched across the wall. She counted carefully. B13, B14, B15. Finally, there it was. Locker B17. The small silver key fit perfectly into the lock. Claire looked at Ethan. You open it. He hesitated, then slowly turned the key. Click. The locker door creaked open. Inside sat a single black leather briefcase. Nothing else. No labels. No names. Just dust and silence. Noah carefully lifted the case onto a nearby bench. It feels heavier than it looks. Detective Reed examined the lock. It hasn't been opened in years. He nodded toward Ethan. Go ahead. Ethan released the metal clasps. The briefcase opened. Everyone leaned closer. Inside were a thick stack of financial documents, an external hard drive, a passport under a false name, several photographs, and a sealed envelope marked, "Only if I'm dead." Noah slowly picked it up. My handwriting. Claire's hands trembled. Read it. Noah broke the seal. His voice was barely above a whisper. If you're reading this, then Daniel failed, which means the people behind this are still free. Everything you need is inside this case. Don't trust anyone wearing a badge until you know who they're working for. Detective Reed's expression darkened. Claire looked at him. You think there's a corrupt officer? Reed answered honestly. I've suspected it for years. Ethan opened the folder of documents. His eyes widened. These weren't ordinary financial records. Each page listed secret bank transfers totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. The same company name appeared again and again. Blackstone Meridian Holdings. Noah froze. I know that company. Claire frowned. You've never mentioned it. I wasn't allowed to. Before Noah could explain, a loud voice echoed across the station. Police. Everyone turned. 3 uniformed officers hurried toward them. One smiled politely. Detective Reed. We'll take it from here. Something about the man's smile made Ethan uneasy. Reed didn't move. I didn't call for backup. The officer's smile disappeared. Orders changed. Reed's eyes narrowed. From who? The officer never answered. Instead, his hand moved toward his sidearm. Down! Reed shouted. A gunshot exploded through the station. Glass shattered. People screamed. Panic erupted instantly. Travelers ran in every direction. Ethan grabbed Claire's hand. Noah seized the briefcase. Detective Reed pulled his weapon. Run! They sprinted through the crowded terminal. Another shot echoed behind them. Someone screamed. Ethan looked back. The officer wasn't aiming randomly. He was aiming directly at Noah. They're not police. Noah shouted. They're wearing stolen uniforms. The group burst onto platform 6 just as a train began leaving. Reed pointed. Get on. The doors started closing. Claire slipped inside first. Ethan pushed Noah through the narrowing gap. Reed jumped aboard at the last second. The train pulled away. The fake officers stopped at the platform, watching silently. None of them looked angry. Instead, they smiled, as if letting them escape had always been part of the plan. Breathing heavily, Ethan looked around the nearly empty train carriage. We made it. No, Detective Reed replied. His voice was grim. I don't think we did. He pointed toward the black leather briefcase. A tiny red light was blinking beneath the handle. Beep, beep, beep. Claire's face turned white. What is that? Reed carefully turned the briefcase over. Hidden underneath was a small explosive device. Its digital timer flashed. 1 minute and 59 seconds. Noah whispered. They knew we'd find it. The timer continued counting down. 1 minute and 58 seconds. 1 minute and 57 seconds. The train raced deeper into a long underground tunnel. There was nowhere to jump, nowhere to run. Only 2 minutes before the bomb exploded. The train thundered through the underground tunnel. The only sound louder than the wheels on the tracks was the steady rhythm of the timer. Beep. 1 minute and 54 seconds. Beep. 1 minute and 53 seconds. Every passenger in the carriage stared at the black leather briefcase. No one spoke. No one moved. Detective Mason Reed knelt beside the case. Everyone, he ordered calmly, move to the next carriage. Now, the frightened passengers rushed away, pushing through the connecting doors. Within seconds, the carriage was almost empty. Only Ethan, Claire, Noah, and Reed remained. Claire looked at the detective with panic in her eyes. "Can you disarm it?" Reed slowly lifted the briefcase. "I don't know yet." He turned it over carefully. A small plastic compartment had been hidden beneath the leather. Inside were 3 wires: red, blue, black, and a tiny note. "Choose wrong, and everyone dies." Claire covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Reed's face remained calm, but Ethan noticed the sweat forming on his forehead. "This isn't a standard explosive. It's professionally built." Noah swallowed hard. "They planned this. They wanted us to find the locker. They wanted us trapped." 1 minute and 22 seconds. The timer kept falling. Claire suddenly remembered something. The station. She looked at Noah. "You said Daniel always planned ahead." Noah nodded. "He never trusted technology. He always left clues." Claire grabbed the envelope from the briefcase. "There has to be something we missed." She unfolded the letter again. At first, nothing. Then Ethan noticed faint marks near the bottom of the page. "Wait." He held the paper toward the carriage lights. Hidden between the fibers was invisible writing. Detective Reed quickly pulled a small UV flashlight from his pocket. Blue light swept across the paper. Words slowly appeared. "The answer isn't the color. It's the number." Everyone stared at the bomb. Numbers? There weren't any. Ethan looked closer. Each wire had tiny printed codes beside it. Red, 17. Blue, 11. Black, 23. Noah's eyes widened. B17. Claire looked confused. "The locker." Noah nodded. Daniel always repeated one thing. "Remember the first number?" 58 seconds. Less than 1 minute remained. Detective Reed closed his eyes for a second. If Daniel's clue is correct, the red wire. Claire grabbed Ethan's hand so tightly it hurt. "What if it's wrong?" No one answered. Reed took a deep breath. His fingers wrapped around the red wire. The timer continued. 41 seconds. He looked at Ethan. "If this fails, get Claire as far away as you can." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not leaving. You have a wife. And you have a duty." Ethan replied. "Neither of us gets to run." For the first time since they met, Reed smiled. 30 seconds. Reed raised the wire cutters. The carriage became silent. Claire closed her eyes. Noah whispered a prayer. Snip! The red wire fell away. The timer froze. 29 seconds. Nothing happened. For one long second, then another. The beeping stopped. Complete silence filled the carriage. Claire burst into tears. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Noah sank onto a nearby seat, his hands shaking uncontrollably. "We're alive." The train finally emerged from the tunnel and stopped at the next station. A bomb disposal team rushed aboard. The lead technician examined the device for less than 30 seconds before looking at Reed. "You were lucky." Reed frowned. "Lucky?" The technician shook his head. "No." He carefully lifted another hidden panel beneath the bomb. Everyone stared in disbelief. There wasn't one explosive. There were two. Claire's face went pale. "What?" The first bomb was designed to stop after cutting the red wire. He pointed deeper inside. The second one was remotely controlled. Ethan frowned. "So why didn't it explode?" The technician looked toward the train window. "Because someone canceled it." Everyone fell silent. Someone had been watching them. Someone had decided, at the last second, not to kill them. But why? Back at police headquarters, Detective Reed ordered the briefcase examined. The external hard drive was connected to a secure computer. A loading screen appeared. Then, a password request. Noah tried his birthday. Wrong. Claire entered the date they first met. Wrong. Ethan typed B17. Wrong again. Suddenly, the computer displayed a message. 3 attempts remaining. Reed immediately pulled the keyboard away. We don't guess. If this drive erases itself, we lose everything. As the forensic team carefully inspected the briefcase, one technician found something unusual. A tiny folded photograph hidden inside the lining. Reed unfolded it. It showed 5 people standing together outside a luxury office building. One was Noah. One was Daniel. The other 3 wore expensive suits. Their faces were circled in red ink. On the back, someone had written, "One of them betrayed us." Noah studied the photo. His breathing became uneven. "I know all 3. Claire looked at him. "Who are they?" He pointed to the first man. Victor Hale, the company's founder. The second, Emily Cross, our chief financial officer. Then his fingers stopped on the third face. His expression froze. "No." Ethan frowned. "What is it?" Noah whispered. "That's impossible." Claire stepped closer. "You know him?" Noah looked at Detective Reed with horror. "I trusted him." Reed's voice hardened. "Who is he?" Noah swallowed. "He wasn't just our lawyer. He was the man who convinced me to enter witness protection." The room became silent. Noah pointed at the photograph one last time. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "His name is Richard Reed." Detective Mason Reed stared at the photo. His face turned completely white. Claire looked between the detective and the photograph. Then she asked the question no one wanted to hear. "Detective, is Richard Reed your father?" The detective slowly closed his eyes, then nodded. "Yes." The truth hit the room like an explosion. If Noah was right, the man who had helped fake his death, and the man who might have betrayed him, was Detective Reed's own father. The room was silent. No one dared speak after Noah whispered the name. Richard Reed. Detective Mason Reed stared at the old photograph as if it belonged to another lifetime. His hands trembled. "My father retired 8 years ago," he said quietly. "He was one of the most respected federal investigators in the country." Noah shook his head. "So I believed. He was the one who told me witness protection was my only chance." Claire looked between the 2 men. "Are you saying he betrayed you?" Noah lowered his eyes. "I don't know, but someone leaked my location, and only 3 people knew where I was hiding." Detective Reed took a deep breath. "My father died 2 years ago." The words stunned everyone. "Died?" Ethan asked. Reed nodded. "Heart attack." Noah's shoulders relaxed for a moment. "So we'll never know." But Detective Reed wasn't finished. "I buried a closed coffin." Everyone looked at him. "The hospital told us his body had been badly damaged in a highway fire." There wasn't a viewing. Claire felt a chill run down her spine. Just like Noah, no one said another word. The similarity was impossible to ignore. At that moment, the forensic technician entered the room. "We managed to access part of the hard drive." Everyone hurried into the digital forensics lab. A large monitor displayed dozens of encrypted folders. Most were still locked. Only one folder had opened. Its name was simple: Truth. Inside were 3 video files. The first file was labeled, "If you're watching this, I'm already dead." Noah hesitated before clicking play. The screen flickered. Daniel Mercer appeared. He looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes. Behind him was a small motel room. He looked directly into the camera. "If you're seeing this, I failed. I'm sorry." He took a shaky breath. The people behind Blackstone Meridian are far more dangerous than we imagined. They own politicians. They own judges. They even have people inside law enforcement. Claire's face grew pale. Daniel continued, "If anything happens to Noah, never trust official reports. They specialize in making people disappear." The video suddenly froze. The screen turned black. A single sentence appeared. "File corrupted." "No!" Claire cried. "There has to be more." The technician shook his head. The rest of the video was intentionally erased. Reed clenched his jaw. They wanted this message found, but not completed. The second file was encrypted. The third file had no title. When Ethan clicked it, security camera footage appeared. The date caught everyone's attention. October 12th, 5 years ago, the day Noah had supposedly died. The footage showed an underground parking garage. A black SUV pulled in. Noah stepped out. Daniel followed him. They looked nervous. Suddenly, another vehicle blocked the exit. 3 masked men emerged. One pointed a gun. The video had no sound, but the panic was obvious. Daniel handed Noah a small package, the same size as the black briefcase they had found. Then, something unexpected happened. Another car sped into the garage. Its headlights blinded the camera. A man stepped out. He wasn't wearing a mask. He spoke to the attackers. They immediately lowered their weapons. Claire leaned closer. "Can you zoom in?" The technician enhanced the image. Slowly, the man's face became clearer. Detective Reed stopped breathing. It wasn't his father. It was someone else. Someone Noah recognized instantly. His voice barely escaped his lips. Victor Hale, the founder of Blackstone Meridian, the richest man in the state. The footage continued. Victor handed Noah an envelope, then pointed toward another vehicle. Noah looked confused. Daniel grabbed his shoulder. They argued. Finally, Noah got into the second car. Daniel stayed behind. The video ended there. Ethan frowned. What happened after that? Noah stared at the frozen image. "I don't know. I lost consciousness before we reached the safe house." Detective Reed suddenly realized something. Wait, if Victor personally saved your life, then why is he trying to kill you now? No one had an answer. That evening, the team returned to Ethan's house under police protection. The broken windows had been replaced, but the home no longer felt safe. Claire quietly stood in the bedroom doorway. Ethan was unpacking the suitcase he had packed just 2 days earlier. She watched silently, then whispered, "I thought I had already lost you." Ethan didn't stop folding his clothes. "You almost did." Tears filled her eyes. "I know." She stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to forget everything. I'm asking for one chance to choose you." Ethan finally looked at her. There was pain in his eyes, but also hope. Before he could answer, his phone rang. Detective Reed. Ethan answered immediately. "What happened?" Reed's voice sounded urgent. "We found Victor Hale. Alive." "No, he was murdered." Ethan froze. "What?" "He was killed less than 30 minutes ago." Claire gasped. Noah slowly stood. "If Victor is dead, then who ordered the attacks?" Reed's voice grew even quieter. "That's not the worst part. There was something written on Victor's office wall." "What did it say?" Ethan asked. Reed paused, then spoke 5 chilling words. "The wrong man came home." The call ended. Everyone in the room looked at Noah. His face had gone completely pale. He whispered, "They weren't trying to kill me." Claire frowned. "What do you mean?" Noah stared toward the dark window. "They wanted me to come back." Outside, across the street, a lone figure stood beneath a streetlight, watching the house. As lightning flashed across the sky, the stranger smiled, then disappeared into the darkness. A flash of lightning illuminated the empty street. The mysterious figure who had been standing beneath the streetlight was gone. Ethan rushed outside. The cold night air hit him immediately. He searched both directions. Nothing. Only the sound of distant thunder. By the time Detective Mason Reed's patrol car arrived, there was no sign that anyone had ever been there, except a small black envelope lying on the sidewalk. Reed carefully picked it up with gloved hands. There was no address, no fingerprints. Inside was a single photograph. Claire gasped the moment she saw it. It was their house, taken that very evening. Standing in the living room were Ethan, Claire, Noah, and Detective Reed. Someone had been watching them from outside. On the back of the photograph, written in red ink, were 8 chilling words. "You're searching for the wrong enemy." The room fell silent. The next morning, Detective Reed called an emergency meeting at headquarters. The surveillance team had analyzed traffic cameras from the night before. 1 black SUV had entered the neighborhood. None had left. "It disappeared," one technician said. "Vehicles don't disappear," Reed replied. "They change." Another officer pulled up new footage. The SUV had entered an underground parking garage beneath an abandoned shopping mall. No cameras covered the exit. Reed looked at Ethan. "I think we just found their hideout." 2 hours later, a tactical police team surrounded the deserted mall. Ethan wanted to come. Reed refused. "This is a police operation." Claire stepped forward. "If Noah is their target, we're not leaving him." After a long pause, Reed agreed. But you stay behind the officers. No arguments followed. The underground garage smelled of oil and rust. Rows of abandoned vehicles sat covered in dust. Broken fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Noah suddenly stopped walking. I know this place. Claire looked at him. What do you mean? His face turned pale. This is where they brought me after the crash. Memories flooded back. He remembered waking up tied to a chair. A bright light. Voices arguing. Then, a man leaning close enough to whisper. One day you'll come back on your own. Before Noah could say more, a loud metallic clang echoed through the garage. Everyone froze. The tactical team raised their weapons. Footsteps. Slow. Confident. A man emerged from the shadows. He was tall, dressed in an expensive charcoal suit, with silver hair and calm blue eyes. He wasn't carrying a weapon. Instead, he smiled. Welcome back, Noah. Noah stared at him in disbelief. It can't be. The man spread his arms. I've been waiting 5 years. Claire whispered. Who is he? Noah answered without taking his eyes off the stranger. Arthur Lang. Ethan frowned. The lawyer? Noah nodded. The man who arranged my witness protection. Detective Reed raised his pistol. Don't move. Arthur smiled. If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead. He looked directly at Noah. You've been asking the wrong questions. Noah's voice hardened. You tried to kill me. Arthur laughed softly. No, I saved your life. Everyone exchanged confused looks. Arthur reached into his jacket. The officers tensed. Slowly, he removed a worn leather notebook. He tossed it onto the floor. It slid to Noah's feet. Read page 73. Noah picked it up. His hands trembled as he turned the pages. When he reached page 73, his face lost all color. What is it? Claire asked. Noah whispered. This is Daniel's handwriting. He began reading aloud. If Noah ever returns, don't tell him the truth immediately. He'll never believe that he wasn't the target. Claire frowned. What does that mean? Arthur answered for him. The attack 5 years ago was never about Noah. Silence. Arthur looked at Ethan. It was about Claire. Claire stepped backward. What? Arthur nodded. Someone wanted her. Not Noah. Noah was simply in the wrong place. No. Claire whispered. That's impossible. Out to a sight. I wish it were. He walked toward an old storage room. The officers followed cautiously. Inside stood a dusty steel filing cabinet. Arthur unlocked the top drawer. He removed a faded birth certificate, then handed it to Claire. She stared at the document. Her breathing became uneven. Her hands began to shake. No. Tears filled her eyes. This isn't mine. Arthur nodded. No. It's your original birth certificate. Ethan looked over her shoulder. The name at the top read, Claire Elizabeth Lang. Not Claire Carter. Not Claire Brooks. Lang. The same surname as Arthur. Claire slowly looked up. What is this? Arthur's expression softened. Because I'm your father. The world seemed to stop. Claire stumbled backward. No. My parents died when I was 6. Arthur closed his eyes. They didn't die. They disappeared. I made the world believe they were dead. Ethan could hardly speak. Why? Arthur's voice broke for the first time. To protect you. Before anyone could process the revelation, a loud explosion echoed through the underground garage. The lights went out. Concrete dust rained from the ceiling. Someone had detonated explosives near the entrance. The tactical officers shouted orders. Smoke filled the corridor. Gunfire erupted from somewhere in the darkness. Arthur looked at Detective Reed. They're here. Reed shouted. Everyone move. As chaos erupted, a masked gunman appeared through the smoke. He wasn't aiming at Noah. He wasn't aiming at Arthur. He pointed his rifle directly at Claire. Ethan threw himself in front of her. Bang! The shot echoed through the garage. Ethan felt a burning pain explode through his shoulder. He collapsed to one knee. Claire screamed. The gunman disappeared into the smoke. Arthur looked at Ethan with horror, then whispered the words that changed everything. They finally found the real heir. The gunshot echoed through the underground garage. Ethan! Claire's scream cut through the smoke. Ethan crashed to the concrete floor, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped through his jacket, staining the gray fabric a deep crimson. "No," Claire cried as she dropped to her knees beside him. "I'm okay." Ethan managed through gritted teeth. "It's just my shoulder." But the pain in his eyes told a different story. Detective Mason Reed and his tactical team returned fire. The masked gunman retreated deeper into the smoke-filled corridors. "Medic!" Reed shouted. Two officers rushed to Ethan. One carefully examined the wound. The bullet went straight through. He looked up. "He's lucky. No major artery." Claire closed her eyes in relief, tears rolling down her cheeks. Arthur Lang stood frozen. His face was filled with guilt. "This happened because of me." Ethan looked at him despite the pain. "Then stop hiding. Tell us everything." Arthur slowly nodded. "I will." The tactical team escorted everyone into a secure office inside the abandoned complex. Arthur placed an old leather folder on the table. Inside were company documents dating back more than 30 years. He pointed to one page. "Blackstone Meridian wasn't created by Victor Hale. It was created by my wife and me." Everyone stared at him. "What?" Noah whispered. Arthur nodded. "We built the company from nothing. But Victor, he stole it." Arthur explained that years earlier, he and his wife had developed a revolutionary investment company. Victor Hale had been their trusted business partner. Instead, he forged legal documents, transferred company ownership, bribed officials. Within months, Arthur had lost everything. When he tried exposing Victor's crimes, his wife was killed in what police ruled a car accident. "It wasn't an accident," Arthur whispered. "It was murder." Claire covered her mouth. "My mother." Arthur nodded. "She died protecting you." After the funeral, Arthur realized Victor would never stop hunting their daughter. So he made the hardest decision of his life. He faked Claire's death. He arranged for another family to secretly adopt her. He disappeared and spent the next 25 years watching from the shadows. Claire could barely breathe. "You knew where I was." Arthur nodded. "Every birthday, every graduation, even your wedding. I watched from a distance." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "You were there. I never stopped being your father." Ethan looked at Arthur. "If Victor wanted the company, why attack Noah? Autua site." "Because Noah accidentally discovered financial records proving Victor stole everything. So Victor decided to eliminate every witness. Daniel, Noah, anyone connected to them. But Victor's dead now," Claire said. Arthur slowly shook his head. Victor wasn't the mastermind. Silence filled the room. He answered to someone else. Detective Reed's phone rang. He answered immediately. His expression darkened. "What?" He slowly lowered the phone. "The forensic team just searched Victor Hale's private office. And they found a hidden safe." Arthur stepped forward. "What was inside?" Reed took a deep breath. "Photographs. Dozens of them. All of Claire. Some as a child. Some during college. Some from only 3 months ago." Claire's face turned white. "They've been watching me. For 25 years. Then came the biggest shock. There was also one DNA report." Reed handed Arthur a copy. Arthur read it once. Then again. His hands began to shake violently. "No." Claire frowned. "What is it?" Arthur looked at her with tears in his eyes. "I was wrong. My entire life. I was wrong." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. Arthur slowly handed the report to Claire. The document clearly stated, "Paternity test result. Arthur Lang, excluded. Probability of paternity, 0%. Claire stared at the page. Her world collapsed. Arthur wasn't her biological father. He had spent 25 years protecting a daughter who wasn't his by blood. Tears streamed down Arthur's face. "I loved your mother so much. I never questioned it." Claire walked toward him. She gently placed a hand on his shoulder, then whispered, "You may not be my biological father, but you are the man who spent 25 years trying to save me." Arthur broke down crying, for the first time in decades. Just then, another officer rushed into the room. "Detective, we've identified the owner of the hidden DNA report." Reed looked up. "Who ordered it?" The officer swallowed. "It wasn't Victor. It was someone using the code name. Guardian." Arthur's expression instantly changed. "No." Claire noticed. "You know that name." Arthur nodded slowly. "I prayed I'd never hear it again." Ethan frowned. Who is Guardian? Arthur whispered. The man who built Blackstone Meridian. The real mastermind. The man even Victor Hale feared. Silence. Then Arthur spoke the name that made Detective Reed freeze. Richard Reed. Everyone stared at Detective Reed. His face drained of color. My father. Arthur nodded. He never died. He disappeared, and he's been controlling everything from the shadows. Before anyone could react, every light inside the office suddenly shut off. Emergency alarms blared. The backup generator failed. A calm voice echoed through the darkness from the building's loudspeakers. Good evening, Mason. Detective Reed stopped breathing. He recognized the voice immediately. The speaker continued. It's time you finally met your father.